Our next presenter is Mike Watson from Jet AI. Thank you.
Thanks. It's Mike Winston, actually, but it's okay. So yes, it's Jet AI. We are a business aviation and AI company. So we have aircraft in Las Vegas. We have 4 of them. And we have problems that we solve with AI, with software, which creates an opportunity to sell that software into the market. That's the big picture thought for us. Here's the rest. So we're being acquired by a SPAC, the Oxbridge Acquisition Corp. There are $12.8 million in the trust. There were 117, but OXAC gave investors the opportunity to redeem. Many did. This is what is left. So we have what we would think of as a base of diehards left. We'll roll over all our equity. And we've got a post-money enterprise value of about $74 million and a common equity valuation of about $87 million. It'll increase growth opportunities for the company. We can use our stock as a currency, and we've got an experienced management team. So, in addition, there's a big earnout, so management and insiders are heavily incentivized to make the stock go up. To my right over here is actually George Bernanke, our CEO. You can see him in the presentation here. Patrick McNulty, our COO, is also present today. And I believe Jay, Matthew, and Rendon are here at the conference too. Hi, there's Rendon. So here's the layout. Share price, equity value, enterprise value, it's kind of self-evident. And there's your sources and uses. It's just what I described in the prior slide. So take a moment. So key things to know about us. We're all about new revenue opportunities in private aviation, both in B2B and B2C. And we'll talk about specifically from a software standpoint what we're doing. That's the overall strategy. Our revenues have gone from about $1 million in 2021 to $20 million in 2022. So we've crossed the chasm from ideation to building a business to developing customers to having repeat customers to developing word of mouth. Most of our revenue comes from the aviation side of the business, which we call capital light aviation at this point. We mentioned our seasoned team and a capital light approach to aviation. So we want to run airplanes where the customers own the airplanes, not us. There's another company out there called NetJets, which is owned by Warren Buffett, where it's the same model. You might want an airline, but you don't want to own the aircraft. You want to match the depreciation and tax characteristics to the utilization characteristics. So that's something that's very important to us, and I think critical for the stock. And we have a pretty big retail following already because we came from crowdfunding. We came from Reg CF and Reg A. So since the company was founded in 2018, we've raised over $17 million through the mechanism of those offerings. And we've brought a lot of people with us, so we have a pretty big community. Here's the team again. So our CEO has over 30 years experience in aviation, was a banker at Merrill Lynch for 10 years prior to that in transportation, or for 10 years rather. Myself, I'm an old Wall Street guy. Patrick, here's with us today, is one of the world's leading experts on the Honda Jet, came from Honda Jet and has a rich background in aviation. John, our CTO, has built a number of tremendous products for us and building more. All of the products you'll see today are, products from John, and they're all coming inside 12 months, something to remember. And Keenan, who's not with us today, but has had many successful years at Cessna Citation and is an expert in selling aircraft. And he's accountable largely for probably at least half of the $20 million sales numbers. He's a wonderfully gifted guy. This is about us. You can read this if you download the slides. I'm not going to read you this because we've got lots to get through. So here's the 5 parts of capital light business aviation. Think about rent a car, lease a car, buy a car. Real simple. Again, matching utilization to capital. So you can buy an aircraft here on the left-hand side. You can think of yourself as needing, let's say, 250 hours, you go buy a plane. Less than that, say 100 hours, you buy a fraction. 25 hours, you buy a card. Less than that, buy a charter. If you're a person who already has a private jet, anyone in the audience has one, and you want it managed, we'll do that. That's what the onboard program is. And if you want us to buy you an aircraft, which we've done for one of our customers who actually upgraded, we'll do that too. There are only 28,000 private jets that have ever been delivered in the history of the world. About 19,000 of them still fly. It's a relatively modern invention. About 15,000 of them are in the United States, maybe 1,000 in Mexico, 1,000 in Canada, a few hundred in other countries. So the United States really is where 80%, or North America in particular, or 80% of the private jet hours are flown. So when you think about companies that are building new branches, you think about expansion, the private jet is really the key to that. So fractional share to full share aircraft sales, pre-sale and pass-through milestone payments to the OEM. This is a critical point of our strategy on the aviation side, which is to say that we can put up very little capital, get a massive amount of asset from the OEM because we've already successfully completed a fleet deal. It's difficult to show up at a manufacturer of airplanes and say, hey, give me a fleet deal with benefits and favorable payment terms if you've never done one before, but we have. And so the benefit of that is that when you acquire the aircraft, you get it at 15 to 20% discount. Well, on a $20 million airplane or a $25 million airplane, you pay 20 and you break it up into 5 pieces and you sell it for 24, 25 right out of the gate. So you have the ability to get your deposit money, which is of course far less than $20 million, maybe it's a few million bucks, out very soon. We like that. That is a very good return on capital strategy. And so when you look at the math all the way out, you're talking about high double-digit IRR. You could even converge into triple-digit. I don't want to go that far, but suffice it to say we like the business. Largely because once the aircraft is sold, the person is paying the expenses of operating it, not you. And you generally make a margin doing it. The trick is to make sure that your network can grow rationally so that you make sure that you can service the customers and maintain a high-quality level of service. Oh, and one other thing. We have a non-binding letter of intent with Bombardier Aircraft, one of the largest manufacturers of private jets in the world, for the purchase of 5 Challenger 3500s, delivered 1 aircraft in each of 5 years. We're a small and growing company, so we want to scale that responsibly. And if we succeed faster than we expect, then we can always get more aircraft. But that to us is a solid trajectory for growing and expanding. Okay, jet cards. So you sell a block of time up front, you recognize revenue as hours are flown, and jet cards are available not just on our aircraft, but also on 25 others or 26 other aircrafts at the Cirrus fleet. So Cirrus Aviation helps operate our aircraft for us. They have 100+ pilots. From a legal standpoint, our pilots are employed by them, which is great because they're a scale operation, and we're very close partners with them on a number of areas, including the software side, which we'll touch on in just a minute. But we get a fixed margin when we sell a jet card on somebody else's plane, and of course we make margin on our own aircraft when we fly them, which is somewhat superior. These, by the way, are wildly popular, particularly in COVID. On fleet charter, you want to go somewhere once, you're not constantly flying, it's a great way to go. And our software side actually deals with this. We can talk about that in a minute. But and then moving on to the onboard program, again, you bring in aircraft to manage and charter. 1 month for conformity. You can't just throw us an airplane. It takes a month for the FAA to come and inspect it and make sure that it's being correctly operated and safely run. And then we'll sell charter and jet card on that aircraft. Give us your vacation home, we'll rent it out and operate it safely. Aircraft have about a 30-year life. The average private jet's about 15 years old, just so you know. Buyer's broker. So we did this for a customer. It's hard to buy a private jet. You got to know what you're doing. Again, with only 28,000 ever delivered, the subset of people who can effectively deliver this service is not big. And we're one of a handful of people that know what they're doing. So when you go to buy a jet, we can help you do it. And we get a margin on that. We get a fixed commission based upon a table that shows all the 80 types of private jets, and you kind of know what you pay when you go. The software side. So I mentioned that we have a B2B and a B2C product. This is the B2C product. It's called Charter GPT, and it's tell me your problems. Tell me where you want to go. And I'm smart enough to find you a private jet to get you there. I've got 2 dogs, 3 kids, 4 pairs of skis. I want to go from New York to Aspen sometime in December. When should I go? What's the right day? I want to go from Vegas to LA. I have a meeting. I have a conference. Which airport should I go to based upon time of year, events happening on the ground in Las Vegas? What should I do? I don't know the first thing about chartering an airplane. This will help you do it. It acts as though it's a person who has 20 years experience chartering airplanes. So we think that this is important not only because of the front-end experience it can deliver, but because of the back-end experience that it can help solve. Things like reconciling contracts between us and the person whose actual airplane it is. Those aren't the same, necessarily. You've got to fix those terms. It's very labor-intensive. For example, there are 5,000 charter operators in the United States. 1,000 of them have fewer than 5 planes and don't always pick up the phone. So one of the things the back end of Charter GPT can do is reach out and touch someone. It can call those operators to ring them up and get them to give offers. So when we put out 10 charter requests, we'll get 2 or 3 responses. That's generally good enough. But there's a big balance there that's an opportunity to price improve. But more importantly, we can tie out payment and know if we have multiple charters booked in the same day. So who cares? What's the point of all this? Why is the back end good and why is the front end good? And the reason it matters is because charter is, there are 1 million charter landings a year in the United States. About 1,300 happen just today while we're here sitting here. Those charters run about an average, there's 1 million landings, okay? 1.3 hours per landing, or per leg. That's how long the trip is usually. It's about $5,000 an hour. And at 1.3 hours, that leg is about $6,500. Well, $6,500 leg times 1 million charters is $6.5 billion of revenue. The margin on charter brokerage is between 5 and 10%, so your profit pool on that addressable market is about $650 million to $325 million or so. But nobody's ever taken more than 2 or 3%. And why is that? And the answer is that you have to continually keep scaling people in order to conduct a charter. It's a very hands-on process. So to the extent that we can take a lot of that labor intensity out of the Charter GPT process, or rather out of the charter process, we believe there's a huge profit pool to be discovered and captured. And we don't have to win it all. Just getting to 10% would put us, that'd be $65 million of super high marginal, low capital intensity, free cash flow. So it's a worthy goal. And we've looked at larger organizations that have tried to do it, and they've done it by acquisition because, again, they haven't solved the labor problem. So we think that's an exciting thing for AI to do because a lot of us visualize or think of AI as something that takes a human out of the loop. I think at the very end of the charter booking process, then, yeah, there was a human in the loop, but by that time, most of the heavy lifting is done. So that's the B2C part. Here's the B2B part. I remember we said we had airplanes and we had problems to solve as a result. So there are 4 of them: Reroute, our card sales and management tool, Flight Club, and Dynaflight. Reroute. Right now, the jet charter industry, again, $6.5 billion, is working in the early 90s. They're emailing one another about empty aircraft going from point to point once the primary passenger's leg is completed, right? You're deadheading back. So Reroute lets an operator look at its schedule, look at where its airplanes are, and determine what the cost should be for it to go someplace else before it gets back to home base. For example, our aircraft are based in Las Vegas. So if an airplane let's say sitting in Dallas, heading back to Vegas, the charter operator can reroute that very quickly and get the pricing very quickly to figure out what it would cost to send that airplane instead to Arizona first before ultimately getting back to Vegas. It's a powerful tool, and it's something that doesn't exist. We've built a minimum viable product, and as I mentioned earlier, all these software products will be available by year end, or really in the next 12 months. So that's Reroute. It transforms wasted empty legs. Flight Club. Flight Club is up and operating now. We've just announced a deal with the Las Vegas Golden Knights to fly people by the seat to the Stanley Cup, which is exciting if you're a hockey fan and a Knights fan. If you are a charter operator of whole aircraft, that means you sell whole aircraft by the charter. You don't sell by the seat. What the Flight Club software lets you do is sell your planes by the seat instead. It's about a 2-week process of filing papers with the Department of Transportation, which we help you do. And then, wouldn't you know it, all the planes that you have sitting on the ground suddenly, instead of being bookable at high dollar cost for one, you can break them down. Initially, all comers. Yeah. Yeah, we don't mind, because in the end, there's plenty of demand to go around, and I like the margins on software and the recurring revenue as much or better than the margin in charter. So why not? The next is Dynaflight, and we're doing good on time here. I've got 10 minutes left, so I probably only need 5. Dynaflight is a way to track the carbon emissions of your aircraft and to purchase small quantities of offset as they fly. Lots of carbon credits today are purchased, most significant carbon credits are purchased in big blocks. It's very working capital intensive. And if you're a guy with 4 or 5 airplanes, that's a tough row to hoe. You need to, buy them as you fly. And the quality of the carbon credits are very, very high. A guy on our board of advisors founded the company, and he sells them to firms like JP Morgan and Microsoft, who've invested tremendous amounts in making sure that they're quality. And we've performed our own investigation, and we agree. So you're getting good stuff, and you're not having to get it in huge blocks. And the software is telling you how much you need to get of it. So if your customers care, there's a way for them to pay, and it's pretty much seamless. And by the way, Dynaflight's integrated into Charter GPT, or will be. Card management and billing. Again, you're that small guy, or you're the mid-sized guy, and you've got 15 planes instead of 5, and you'd like to sell jet cards, but you can't. Great example, our partner Cirrus, 30 planes don't sell jet cards. Hard to imagine, it's true. So the card management and billing software lets you come in, we'll give you the contract for a jet card purchase, and we'll give you the software that your members can log into and check how much money they've got left, what they've spent, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of a end-to-end solution in that respect. Kind of a mini CRM, you could think of that. And that takes us to the financial overview. There's us, from $1 million to $21 million. Most of that comes from aircraft sales. And in the future, we're looking to shift the mix towards software and to continue to grow the aircraft sales. Remember I mentioned we had a deal with Bombardier for 5 aircraft, a non-binding letter of intent. So the pipeline of aircraft deals should be supportive of revenue on an ongoing basis. And the software and the growth in the software products, and there's 5 now, but more to come, should help the stability in that mix and also the margin in that mix. Although to be clear, the margin in capital-light aviation is pretty good to begin with. There's the comps. Okay. You can sort of see there's some AI companies that are big, some AI companies that are small, and some travel-related companies. PJ, as in private jet. We'll be listing, we're merging with the Oxbridge Acquisition Corp, scheduled for around mid-July. Yes, it is. Acquisition Corp, OXAC. It will be after the presentation, yes. Yeah. Sure, no, we got 8 minutes. I thought I'd only have 5. So let's go for it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What happens if there's like 3 other people that want to use that plane in the same day? So in that instance, we try to schedule you guys out so that, because the plane will go there and back. In the United States, the furthest 2 points are like 5 hours or so, depending upon, you can really stretch it with an edge case, but it's just a couple hours difference. So most of our customers, well, if they don't have to leave at 8, they can leave at 10, or they can leave at 12. Sometime in the morning is generally good. We just get the plane back. But the worst case is we have to subcharter an aircraft to meet that demand. But it's not so bad because, number one, we load balance very carefully. We turn away customers, and it kills me, but we turn away customers all the time that are not suitable for our geography. And when we do subcharter, because it's a jet card, there's revenue sitting there already, and we just use that jet card money instead of ledgering it to ourselves. We pay it out to a charter broker, or rather to an operator. Yeah. Yes. Sure. Let's just go back to that slide. There's $12.8 million in the trust. We expect $7.8 million at most pro forma for the deal after expenses. And the minimum cash condition of the deal is $5 million. And, we've got a number of term sheets that we're looking at. It just depends upon which one we choose. Yeah, and it's important to know that this SPAC was $117 million to begin with. They allowed everybody out, extended the life of the SPAC, and now we're here. So we think of the remaining monies as somewhat die-hard, but risks and limitations and so forth. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think, where's Oxbridge now, or Oxac? Is it about $10? 1060 maybe. Yeah.
Actually, Mike's doing a great job
Under promise, over deliver. That's our motto here at Jet AI. Mid-July is when we're slated to list if all goes according to plan. More questions. Don't be afraid. Everyone loves private jets. You can ask your questions. Sure. First of all, congratulations on having a G550, and God bless you. But what a terrific airplane that is. So generally speaking, a management company will take about 15% of the charter revenue. So yeah, they take a lot of the margin, but they keep the plane moving. And there's a little bit of money left over, and that helps cover operating expenses. But what's left over is not much. It's usually just to cover operating expenses. Airplanes like to fly. They don't like to sit around. So if you're not flying enough, you need to charter it. In certain cases, there's more depending upon the level of demand. So you can make money chartering your plane, but it's mostly an offset. It's a little bit like you have a vacation home. You can make money if you're really diligent about it, on your vacation home, but most of the time you're just looking to offset costs. So I think your experience is a very common one and something most people should expect. Yeah. Quick survey. Who here has been on a private jet before? We know you're an expert already. You have. And do you know what kind? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we know enough.
Anyone here own a private jet? Oh, well, we know you do, so. Kind of the price has been revealed on that one. Yeah. Well, I think that everyone competes with NetJets. Everyone competes with NetJets. But we focus in the West, right? So, I think that jet card programs in general that reach our service area would be competitors. So Wheels Up's a popular one. That's a well-known name. NetJets is one. FlexJet is another. These are not public companies accepting Wheels Up. And by the way, a big difference between us and Wheels Up, notwithstanding scale, is that they own all their planes, and we don't want to own planes. And we don't own planes. So when you think about the asset intensity and the returns on capital, it's a big distinction.
When you buy a plane, but you immediately sell it out.
Well, the plane hasn't been delivered yet. So our risk capital is the deposit on the aircraft. You can think of it that way, rather than having $20 million of airplane sitting there. Say again? For a seat, generally speaking, buy the seats like about $700, versus like 7,000, like we talked about earlier. So it's an order of magnitude less if you can buy it by the seat, and it just depends on the experience. One of the things that BDB and charter operators look at, because if you think about it, all the products we've shown you today on the software side are for charter operators, right? And there's 5,000 of them. And so there's a deeper vision of using AI to solve problems in aviation. That's a strategy, right? But the tactics are, let's do what we know. Let's launch 4 products successfully in the next 12 months, actually 5. Let's have the Charter GPT out in people's hands before the offering in July, which is when it's due out. So you can see the product. I mean, if that helps your question.
So there's 5,000 operators who charge your offer?
Roughly, yeah.
And how many aircraft is that?
So there's 3,000 or so of those operators. So a couple thousand of them are like they had planes, but they don't anymore, and they're sort of dormant. What you really care about are probably the top 2,000 or 3,000 of those, and really in the top 200 you're going to get most of the bang for your buck. But there's still planes out there, and they quote them, and you want to get them if you can, because it can make all the difference. For example, in the case that you asked about where you need to charter a plane because somebody has a jet card and you have a conflict, it's really important to get the best price. So getting that one guy who has an airplane but he's not picking up the phone, that is significant, or can be.
There is an app now in the App Store.
Yeah, thank you. I've been remiss in closing. We have an app now in the App Store called Jet Token, which are so you can go and try it. We book revenue through it today.
And that's for individuals that will get it?
Yeah.
No, by the aircraft.
Yeah, that's whole aircraft charter.
Version 1. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't repeat the question, I realized, but that's okay. Hopefully everyone can hear. Thanks so much for this time.